You know, 7 for 18 is not bad. Damn, I heard that shit, dog.
Heard what?
I had it unmuted. Never mind. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Funny Ethereals.
Welcome.
We pivoted again because I didn't realize last Tuesday that Martin Luther King would have been the upcoming Monday. But we were already going to talk about MLK in this season as it pertains to the FBI, and I found out way more than that.
Way more than that.
So it's apropos, but we'll get into some current events and then go on.
Yeah, current events. We had a few that we had lined up, right? They unveiled the MLK statue, right?
Can you pull a picture up of that?
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, people made a lot of fun of it, and I understand that it was the arms and like a very sentimental picture, but
it doesn't look like it.
It's difficult to critique art, but I'm not a fan.
You're not a fan?
I think it looks more like a big bronze blob than it does anything.
Let me see this. I think I saw it on Instagram, but
okay, this angle's not bad. I got an angle, like if you're looking at this picture and you walked like 50 feet that way.
Yeah.
Am I pointing the right way? I don't know. But so it just looked like crazy nothing. You couldn't even see the hands. I don't know.
It's
weird.
It's very weird.
Very weird.
Not in a bad way. I don't know.
I just feel like there's better things you could have sculpted.
It's like, yeah, the arms are hugging, but
wasn't the price tag like super high too? Like millions of dollars?
They could have done better for such an iconic man.
It's not that they could have done better. It's just that money could have been used to like change some lives.
Yeah.
What is that granite thing?
I guess we are critiquing it. We shouldn't critique it.
Dallas? I'm not critiquing it. I mean, it does look awkward from some angles.
I did critique it. Sorry.
I think we're all right.
I like shit that glows in a black light, not bronze arms.
You are an authority on the matter.
Yeah. So anyway, they did that, and then I saw something that came out about Hunter Biden. I mean, every week, but I just barely looked into it. It looks like he signed a form for something and wrote that he paid $50,000 in rent. But he owned the house, but it's Joe Biden's house, the one they just found the documents in, so it looks extra sketch. Who knows? All I'm gleaning out of that is it looks like if they're willing to write articles in a negative light about Biden as much as they have been lately, it seems like whoever really has the most influence is kind of done with Biden, which makes sense because the midterms just ended. If you were just supplanting Trump, or like you just wanted to win 4 years for some reason, it makes sense that you would win, wait till after the midterms, and then pull the shoot.
Take him out.
Who knows, though? Maybe he's just a...
I think they still knew, though, because, I mean, think about, like, when the Hunter Biden instance went down and Trump's going for president against Biden.
You think Trump's going to run in 2024?
He is. He said he is.
He hasn't actually been convicted of anything, right? He was impeached, but it didn't pass.
Yeah, I don't think it passed. I think
he got impeached twice by Congress, but I think the Senate has to pull him out, and they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to get him on the same thing because he had files at Mar-a-Lago. But, and he was combative about, like, returning them or something like that. Like, he didn't make it super easy.
Biden
but then
Trump.
But I also heard that, like, the FBI went there, knew he had them put their own lock on it, and then when they raided it, they cut their own lock off and took those files. I don't know.
Makes sense.
I don't know if that's true or not. But I do know, and there's probably legalities around this, so there's a specific way to do it, but presidents can declassify files. Mm-hmm. Vice presidents can only declassify files they classified or someone directly under them classified. So, like, presidents seem to more across the board get to do whatever they want with files of that nature, but vice president gets to do less, and these files are from when Biden was vice president. I don't know. To me, it seems like way too much shit is classified, so I really couldn't give a shit. It's not like Hillary Clinton level server in my bathroom type situation, so I don't know.
I think it's every other instant the vice presidency is a joke almost, except unless you're Dick Cheney, of course.
Yeah, when you ran everything.
Especially, like, what is Kamala doing now? Every clip I see of her is like a long paragraph of big ass words, but the sentence means fucking nothing.
Dude, she's not doing anything.
I think that's part of it. Like, they probably knew going into Biden's administration that he wasn't going to be, we were just talking about an 8-year president, right? So I imagine they're starting to try to flip the script and try to direct it toward, I can't say her name.
Yeah, because Biden keeps saying that he's going to run again. And it's like, dude, you
can't even think.
You're coming up on octogenarian. You're crazy old.
Yeah.
No disrespect to old people, but obviously.
No, but his mind is gone.
Yeah, like, I think if you're not he's in the early stages.
Watch like any of his fucking speeches, anything like that, man, and you'll see when people ask questions that he wasn't told about, and he's like, "Yeah, I can't answer that."
Yeah, I don't have a script ready for this.
I don't have a script ready for this.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to answer like open questions very often either, which is kind of weird. When you're used to Trump going, only Rosie O'Donnell and shit like that, it's a hard turn. So I don't know. There used to be I used to have one of his flubs memorized. I can't remember what it was. It was like no words, but I memorized the no words because I thought it was funny. And it was like a lot of consonants long. And then I was going to like have a softball league, and I was going to name the team the Dog-Faced Pony Soldiers because he called someone that. And I was like, how is that even an insult? What are you talking about?
You nincompoop.
Yeah.
Macaroni ears. You lint liquor.
It's like do you ever see the roast of Bob Saget when Norm Macdonald used like the joke book from like the 50s, and he was like, Bob has the face of a flower. Yeah, cauliflower. It's like that. No. That reminds me of the way Biden talks.
Oh, that's fucking awful. Yeah.
Different generation, man. It's crazy.
But you know, another week, another trove of evidence of corruption. So we'll see if anything goes anywhere. It just seems like the news the media is supposed to be the fourth estate and keep the government in line, but lately they're just the spotlight of the government, taking out whoever the government wants to with bad press. Essentially, is kind of the way I'm viewing it. And so if they're willing to talk bad about the president, it seems like the president is no longer in favor by anyone who can like change that.
Right.
I say
get him out if they want him out.
And I say that as a voter, even though I've never voted.
You've never voted in any election?
No.
You don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that if you don't feel comfortable.
I haven't. I really like politics. I really like talking about it, but I haven't voted at all.
Is it because you feel like your vote doesn't matter?
No, I feel like I'm not going to vote for someone that I don't want to. Like, I'm not just going to pick the lesser two evils, and I understand that writing someone's name in is a waste of my time, so I'm not going to vote.
You know what I've come to learn in the little bit of research I've done on politics is that the president, voting for the president, like, yeah, that really doesn't matter because they're going to pick at the end. The Electoral College picks it at the end no matter what. So
the Electoral College is, I think that system is appropriate. The Electoral College, I wouldn't get rid of it and just do a popular vote, but I also think that like getting through the DNC and the RNC and becoming that person that's running for the Republicans or the Democrats, there's so many favors involved that even if it all is above board, they're just telling you what you want to hear.
But it matters on your state level is what I was going to say.
Yeah, local and state. I totally
local and state, because I mean they can add some bullshit to your town, and there's a lot of stuff that's good to vote for out there. No, and I've never, like you just said, I've never voted for. I've only voted technically like one time, but I want to change that.
I actually got extra credit in high school because I filled out my voter registration card. So I got like a free 100 or something, and it got returned because I filled it out incorrectly.
That's pretty funny.
What did you fill out incorrectly?
The voter registration? I don't know.
Address or zip code or something?
Yeah, I think I had like 2 different addresses at the time, and I put the wrong zip code.
Oh, you put the trap
for one of the
address?
No, I mean, so I broke the rules. I used my grandma's address to go to high school.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have mattered, but I moved around so often that we just stopped moving the address and left it at her house.
Yeah.
And then my mom moved to Seagaville, and there was 2 different zip codes. So I put the wrong zip code on the wrong address. I think I used my grandma's address because I didn't want to get in trouble with the school, even though I couldn't have at the time. I don't know. It's stupid. Why are we talking about this?
Well, yeah, we're down a tangent
now. Well, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to find a segue into MLK, and I can't find one.
Yesterday was MLK Day.
Yesterday was MLK Day. Did y'all have a good day on MLK Day?
Cowboys
Biden gave a speech, so that's our segue. Biden gave a speech at the church that he was a pastor at.
And then he sang happy birthday to MLK III's wife and forgot her name. And it was like kind of awkward.
Oh, yeah, dude, because he wasn't ready for that. He was like, I wasn't told to learn names.
I wasn't told to memorize names.
He was like, happy birthday to Coretta? No.
He's fumbling there. Happy birthday to...
Camelo, you're my vice president.
If you didn't vote for me, you ain't black.
Jesus Christ.
He said that.
That's said an actual
quote. Did he say that, or did Clinton say that? Hillary.
No, that was
Biden. That was Biden.
If Biden.
And now I said it, and y'all didn't know it, so I gotta take this off my back.
You gotta take what off your back?
Sounding like that. It's an actual quote.
Why are you Googling it?
Because it's for my own sanity, not yours necessarily.
Yeah, but you should definitely play that, Jeremy.
Is it a video?
I don't know.
Yeah, here, I'm putting it in the watch together.
That'd be great.
It looks like he was talking to Charlemagne the God.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Why?
I want to ask you about your running mate. I don't know if you saw before it broke that Amy Klobuchar was being vetted, and a lot of people on social media,
be playing right now.
They're not too happy about that. And it's because they want your running mate to be a black woman. I don't know if you saw the op-ed in the Washington Post by some of the leading black women voices in this country. And they feel since black women are such a loyal voting bloc and black people saved your political life in the primaries this year, they have things they want from you. And one of them is a black woman running mate. What do you say to them?
What I say to them is that I'm not acknowledging anybody who is being considered, but I guarantee you there are multiple black women being considered. Multiple.
Well, you know,
Thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
Isn't it funny that the one that he picked, being Kamala Harris, spent the entire run-up, the Democratic debates, calling him a racist? Have y'all seen those clips?
You can't do that to black
We can do this
media.
all night.
I can't do that to white media and black media
Jesus.
because my wife has to go on.
We're supposed to talk about
Hang on,
MLK.
hang on.
Okay.
Hang on.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
It's about to
Listen,
happen.
you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
They don't have no
Okay.
Oh.
There. He said it.
Oh.
That's insane. All right, so MLK.
Dude, but you can pull up a fucking article. I've seen it. I wish I could pull it up right now. Of him saying back in the 70s in a newspaper clip that he was like, my children will never go to the same schools as African American children.
Yeah, I think he said the word jungle or something at the time too.
Yeah, he definitely did.
Awful dude. But let's continue anyways.
No, because that goes right into Jeremy's segue of talking about the civil rights.
Yeah, because it was the 70s when he said it.
We're starting with me. I'm going back to the 1800s. I don't know if that's the best place to start.
Yeah.
You're taking the wheel.
Well, we are covering MLK, so we're doing the conspiracy around it is actually his assassination. So doing the research leading up to, I guess, the whole civil rights movements and what kind of produced that environment, I guess is the right way of saying it, right? No. So anyways, I traced it all the way back. I went back to the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th and 14th Amendment being created, and trying to assist in some of the, I guess, de-escalation of some of the I don't want to say race wars, but some of the issues that the country was facing, right? Totally different time for sure. So the 13th Amendment was ratified in 1865. Coincidentally, the same year the KKK is formed, so not coincidence. And I wrote down this quote because I definitely wanted to call it out, but in the 13th Amendment, word for word, just quoting what it says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall be duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place. So that little clause right there is, in the same time abolishing slavery, is putting in a system that allows slavery. And we're going to do an episode eventually on the prison stuff, the issues going on with the prisons, private prisons and stuff like that, with the courthouses and the disparity between, blacks and whites being imprisoned for different rates and different crimes, right?
Yeah.
So that's the loophole in the system that's allowing that issue right now is the accept as a punishment for crime. So you get convicted of a crime, you get put in prison, and you basically have to work for free and do manual labor and all this shit just because of that, right?
Yeah.
Some of the southern states rebelled. They created their own, they called it the Black Code. Southern states rebelled, denied contracts for blacks, so they said you can't sue, you can't be sued, so it's kind of diminishing their rights.
This is different than Jim Crow laws?
I meant to get that down. I don't know if that is different, honestly. It might be all rolled up in the same stuff.
Here, I'll Google it. Keep going.
So they created these black codes that were kind of just challenging the Congress 13th and 14th Amendment. Actually, they did these black codes. They did the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And then in response to the black code stuff, the 14th Amendment was created that gave Congress the authority to say, hey, we do have the right to say what we can do, right? Civil War happens. 11 years after the Civil War, 17 blacks were elected to Congress from the South by 1908 laws, and 8 southern states prevented blacks from voting. Just some more dates that are relevant. June 19th, 1900, Austin, Texas celebrates Juneteenth. Just following my train of thought, 1866, slavery is abolished, right? So it kind of spawns all these events. There's kind of I wanted to say like a mass exodus from the South, moving further and further north where their safe haven were considered. They called it the Garden of Eden, anywhere up north. I'm thinking Chicago, New York, Harlem, all that stuff. That happens. 1917, World War I strikes. Blacks join the military voluntarily. 1 week after the U.S. entered the war, they are put into segregated units, so they're not allowed to fight next to white people.
So
that's so fucking crazy.
In my tertiary glance at deciphering black codes from Jim Crow, black codes were immediately after the Civil War. Jim Crow is much closer to like the civil rights movements.
You're right. Jim Crow's 100 years later, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But they're pretty close to the same thing. The black codes were like you have to show employment or you go to jail, and Jim Crow is more like redlining and stuff like that. Like it's a little less overt, but still very destructive. So anyways,
I'm leading up to World War One. I said that they were forced into segregated units. They were also
Never heard about that. I knew that they did with like the Civil War and all that, but
oh yeah, are you saying up through World War II?
well,
No, this is World War.
Yeah, talking about World War One, I guess I never thought about like being segregated as soldiers. I knew that they had like the shitty jobs if they were working, like they were like cooking or cleaning up shit. But
that's coming in World War II.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. It's
I
kind
mean,
of
there were segregated units through World War II. So
yeah. No, yeah, it's the same. Okay, so World War One, they're still segregated. I mean, there are segregated units. They're forced to train with wooden guns because the people in charge, the officers, feared if they gave them real guns during basic training, they couldn't take them back. There would have been some kind of like rebellion or something. So they withhold them from training with their actual equipment. They're going to go into battle with. One aside I had. What?
How do you train them to reload and load a fucking wooden gun? Is it like made for that?
I don't know.
Doubt
man.
it.
I mean,
This
I
is
think we're
stupid.
pretending there's an argument for this shit, and there's just not. So
I just want to slap the fuck out of these white dudes.
No, dude,
What the fuck is wrong with you?
This isn't something I read, but the vibe I was getting is that they were like creating cannon fodder. Like this was going to be the front line that kind of rushes in and takes the heavy blows, and then the officers and the whites are in the back like pushing. I don't know. I did put down a note saying that the 369th Infantry Regiment, 191 days under continuous fire. They're being in a fight, and they never lose ground and never lose a POW. So that was just, I was going to give them credit, right?
that's like 2/3 of a year, man.
Yeah. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to use a gun. It doesn't, but I mean, if you're trying to prepare somebody to go into war, I think you would want them to be most prepared and familiar with
But
the
especially if you've never held one, think about it.
Right.
Like you've never held one, you don't know how to use it. They're not educated, at that point in time.
for sure.
People in general. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people that didn't get enlisted in World War I and World War II, it was because they were, like of all stripes, they were very uneducated. Like people from farms who never went to school and just knew how to farm. Some of them weren't able to join the military also because they knew only about farming equipment.
And my mom's the hottest girl I know.
Yeah. I think because my grandma had dirt floors growing up for a little bit, and she was born in the 40s. So like I think people take for granted how poor people were up even through like the 60s, 70s. 80s is really when everyone popped off and
Blunderbusters.
yeah.
Just going back to my timeline. So 1917, these African Americans go off to war to fight for the country that has been, I don't know how to word it, but just brutal to these people. But they volunteer to go to war and try to defend this country. They come back in 1919 when thinking they're going to be heralded as heroes and like just open arms and stuff like this. When they get back in 1919, it's on the cusp of the Great Depression, right? So when they're coming back from World War I, they're immediately met with angry white people. They're like, we don't have enough jobs to go around for you people, and you're going to come and try to take all of our jobs and shit. So it's the same resonance that's happening right now, I feel like. Not with necessarily African-American people, but, immigrants and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. It's the classic South Park, you took our jobs. Yeah. Except it's not weird cloned aliens from the future.
No, it's crazy, dude. Like the stuff that was going on in the 1920s and stuff, these people are coming back from war, defending their country, and they're met with people that are like resentful and like, what are you even doing here? Like they had it like
same thing.
There's like
same thing happened in Nam.
There's a photo evidence and stuff of people getting, I don't know how to be politically correct about this, but they're getting lynched and stuff like this stuff in their veterans uniforms. Like it's like American soldier uniforms being lynched. It's crazy. It blows my mind. I was touching on it earlier. So after the Emancipation Proclamation, they kind of fled the South. I said mass exodus going north and trying to move up. Oklahoma was one of the first safe havens. Texas was actually never mind. I'm not gonna touch on that right now. But the note I was gonna make on Oklahoma. Have you ever seen there's a TV series called The Watchmen?
Yeah.
Have you watched that?
Still based off the comic?
No, it's very much a sequel to it, almost.
It's a sequel to the...
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a 10 episode season. It's one season. It's like, it should have been a movie, but they did a 10 episode series. And it is great, high quality content, dude. If you haven't watched it, it's worth a watch. It has Dr. Manhattan. The point I'm making, so all these people are moving into Oklahoma because it's considered the Garden of Eden. It's considered Garden of Eden is Harlem later. There's a town in Oklahoma where they were all kind of building up and like building this big community. It was called Black Wall Street, and the event I'm talking about right now is called the Black Wall Street Massacre. And
I'm vaguely familiar with this. I forgot it was in Oklahoma.
The Watchmen series has like a flashback to this episode. I didn't write down the numbers, but it's 35 square blocks of a neighborhood. It was a 2-day long massacre. There is photo evidence. I don't know when the airplanes were invented, but it had to have been like years before this. Like not like decades, but like 1 or 2, 3 years. When was the airplane invented? Doesn't matter.
I think it's
1919.
Yeah, it's like 19...
No, it was before World War One, so it had to have been like 1915, 16, somewhere around there.
It was right around there, yeah.
There's literally planes flying over this town, dropping bombs on this black community.
The Wright brothers was 1903.
So 20 years earlier.
Damn.
There are airplanes dropping like napalm bombs on this black community.
Holy shit.
It's a white national terrorist attack on this community. And it's very detailed in the Watchmen series. Like it was my first exposure to this event that I've never heard about before. I've seen this show maybe 5 years ago when I was 27 or something like that.
Yeah.
What was this called again? I'm sorry.
It's the Black Wall Street Massacre. 2-day long event.
Massacre. Yeah, I've never heard of this.
May 31st through June 1st. Attackers burned down and destroyed more than 35 square blocks. The massacre began during Memorial Day weekend after a 19-year-old black shoe shiner was accused of assaulting an elevator operator. And they were proposing the idea that this guy gets lynched, so it kind of set off this, chain of events. But the point I was making, it's very, very, very much a terrorist attack. It's crazy. That's where it happened. So crazy people don't really talk about it. Dude, I don't know how this isn't in history books. Like, I never heard anything of it. I don't live in Oklahoma or something. It might be part of their like state curriculum or something, but just south in Texas, like I had never heard of that event. Blows my mind.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that either. That's insane.
I'm building the case for the civil rights movement.
Into it.
Yeah, we'll have to look into it more, but I'm gonna keep trucking along. Another safe haven that the people were moving toward was Harlem. So New York City, there was a lot of people that were refusing rent and mortgages to black communities. So Harlem was kind of a safe haven for them. It was one of the only places that would rent out apartments and real estate to this community. Vogue magazine kind of establishes it as like a prestigious, like taboo place almost. Like it's where you go to tap into like, I don't want to say underbelly, but it's like a taboo, like eccentric kind of crowd. Like jazz and all that stuff is going on. There's all these nightclubs that pop up and stuff. And it's so successful, it starts attracting like the wealthy white people from, Manhattan Alley and stuff moving in. So they start coming in and driving up this, I guess, the economy of this stuff. So it's like creates this feedback loop where the black communities want to take advantage of this white people coming in. So they start catering to the stuff that they're looking for. And there's African American acts that are literally in blackface doing parodies of their own like culture and stuff like that. It's crazy stuff. They do plantation acts. They do like African tribal acts and stuff like that, all to appease and try to drive in revenue from this white crowd. I thought that
So
was
they're
pretty
just capitalizing off the white people by
No, I'm
hurting
saying like
themselves?
it's like a feedback loop. So like if you kind of do this weird act and then you get attention from it, so like you kind of like
They look like fools in order to get money.
right, but it's being reinforced through like the money. Like so they do this act and then like oh that's what they're attracted to. So they kind of like it reinforces. Let's keep doing this act. Let's further this vein. And like oh
Yeah, it
they like
reminds me-
blackface. Let's keep doing blackface. And it just
It reminds me
perverted
of,
this
like-
whole thing.
In like modern terms of like every famous black male actor has to dress up in a dress and play a woman at some point. Have y'all heard of like I saw a video of Cat Williams talking about it, and then there was another one of someone else talking about it, and
Makes sense.
how it's like degrading, but it does make money. Like Big Mama's House made a lot of money. Tyler Perry, all the Medea movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
White chicks.
at the same time, yeah, white chicks. At the same time, it's like, but is that saying something larger culturally rather than just like being a market stimulator? And obviously, back in these times when they're having to do overtly racist things, it is just market feedback. It's not.
Market feedback is probably the word I was looking for, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it's stimulating the culture in all the wrong ways, but
In
the
all
market
the
is
wrong ways.
reinforcing it.
Yeah.
Just keep trucking along, kind of building up to the 1960s. Indiana, 1920s. I can't remember why I wrote this down, but Methodist Church is one of the biggest communities in the state. Muncie, Indiana. The KKK moves into town, and by 1925, 1 of every 4 white people in Muncie, Indiana, are Klan members.
Damn. That's a lot of fucking people.
1930s, 1940s, there's a big train company that, like, their trains are pretty big at this time, obviously, but they start hiring black waiters and people to kind of, like, serve white people that were, I guess, like, back in the previous time, they were plantation people, like, house servants and stuff, feeding people and stuff. So that's the people they sought after to hire as waiters on these trains. And what I was reading, it was like the best opportunity for them. It was the highest paying job. They got to ride around on the train. They got to move around the country and stuff.
Well, yeah, and if they had a resume, it is, I've literally been doing this.
Right.
But please pay me for it now.
Right. So moving into World War II, 1941, black enlist only to find that they are assigned as waiters to white officers. So any African American going into service in World War II, they are immediately assigned to these like servitude roles. Like you're going to be serving white officers, you're going to be the people bringing them lunch and like running papers and stuff like that. Virginia basic training, that's where this is 1940, so a lot of these are like second generation people after segregation. So they're, in a sense, they moved up north from the 1860s up until 1940. So I'm saying there's a second generation that wasn't part of the South movement. Like they were born in the North and they sign up to go to war and they have to go to basic training in Virginia. So this is their first exposure to that Southern kind of, I'm going to say hospitality, but it's kind of like a wake-up call for a lot of them, seeing how bad it actually is down in the South. 1943, there was 68 racial confrontations within military training groups in military bases. Over 2 years, 50 blacks were killed in racial incidences within training camps. Like, that stuff kind of blows my mind, too.
Yeah, and let's be like wicked honest. That's what got written down, too. Like, you have to imagine there's some...
Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, yeah, there could have been...
I mean, how many accident reports are there? There's probably a shitload more, you know?
Put an exponent
I don't
above
know.
that number, and it's probably more accurate.
Yeah, if you look at how, like, with the Tuskegee experiments, I don't know if you have that date down, but, like, they were literally giving black population syphilis just to see what would happen.
Yep. Alex Jones talks about that a lot.
So, like, the government on mass is
Shady as...
all acting similarly.
I'm gonna go ahead.
And that was a 40-year term. I just Googled it. It started in 1932 and it didn't end until 1972.
Damn.
What was that?
Nearly 400 African Americans, they injected them with syphilis over a 40-year span.
Excuse me. Sorry about that.
So, like, I don't know. it's like Remember the Titans is like a glimpse into it, but if you put Remember the Titans in real world terms, it's so much worse than that.
Oh yeah,
I'm getting
dude.
I'm about to
I
get
love
into
that
Brown
movie,
versus
but-
Board.
Especially when you are behind it with the force of an entire government. It's another level.
Yeah, for real.
I'm gonna keep going. So 1954, you get Brown versus the Education Board. So this is even though segregation has been passed, you know, we're 1954, so this is 90 years after the 13th Amendment.
This is in Alabama, correct?
I can't remember where the actual case was, but Brown versus the board might have been Alabama, and it gets taken to the Supreme Court, and that's kind of when you start getting forced segregation in schools. The note I was going to make, so you get the Brown versus Board of Education, and by 1954, 55% of all American schools except Supreme Court that had accepted the Supreme Court decision.
It was Kansas.
It's something crazy. It was only like 2 schools ended up actually being segregated. Yeah. And the note I was going to make, kids were the kind of the front of this movement. So they're trying to segregate all the schools, and I cannot. I'm a parent, but I'm not saying they use their kids in this way. Like it obviously had to play out the way it did, but the kids are the ones that took the brunt of this stuff, right?
Yeah, because they were the ones walking into the schools.
Dude, I can't fathom what that would have been like for those parents, for those kids, putting your kid in a white school at that time and like just crossing your fingers that nothing is going to happen. Like it is the saddest thing to me. I'm not saying it didn't need to happen or anything like that. Like there was some of the stuff that I was reading that was later on after the fact. They said it did more harm or something like that. I 100% know it needed to happen. I'm just saying.
So, for context, the same fear flipped from the white parents' perspective is as intense, though irrational. So you have like that heightened sense of emotion on either side of it. That's why everything blew up so as hard as it did. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, yeah.
I mean, obviously they're incorrect, but like
because they'd be pissed off. But they had African American parents. Yeah, the African American parents are just concerned about their kid because, dude, who knows what could happen? They could beat the hell out of them or whatever. I don't know. It'd be awful.
No, yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of evidence for it.
It's pretty crazy.
Let's get through the sad shit.
Okay, so 1957, this is optimism. There's the first.
Hang on, the whole thing is going to be sad shit.
Yeah,
keep going. I guess that's what I'm saying.
So let's make jokes and
this is a good piece. So 1957, you get the first interracial marriage. Their last name is actually Loving. So there was a case that went to the Supreme Court.
Loving v. Virginia.
Loving v. Virginia, and it's the first interracial marriage that like actually kind of went and won this case, right? And there's arguments in there of them saying,
what year was that?
1957.
Okay.
And there's arguments from the couple saying, it's like a God-given right. You should be able to marry who you want. Like the government shouldn't be able to tell you like you can't marry interracially. Yeah. It's such bullshit. It seems so obvious to us now. I'm sure we take for granted. But in 1957, like they got like ridiculed and put through so much shit for just wanting to get married to this person that you're in love with. Like,
yeah.
It's insane shit, dude. And we
got to see it. We got to
see it with gay rights, yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah, 100%.
Different but similar, I guess.
Different, yeah, it's different, but yeah.
But we were kids when that passed, or what was that? 2010, 2008, something like that?
Maybe 10
years.
It's been a bit. I can't remember the exact date.
I'm pretty sure I was still in school when it happened. So, I mean, that's the formative years,
I'm not trying to compare the two at all, but like I feel like those should have been roped in together. I know there's arguments about the homosexuality.
But anyone should be able to marry.
That should have been the bottom line. Like any two people that want to get married.
Doesn't matter what you are or who you are.
100%.
You should be able to marry who you want to marry. And I agree with you, Jeremy. It should have been done all at once and not however fucking many years apart. I don't know the actual number.
Yeah, because in a governmental sense, if you're in charge of marriage as a government, it's really only a tax filing. And like now the government knows that these two are cohabitating and going to live together forever. It's easier to send the mail, blah, 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 for all the government shit.
Right.
That's all marriage is to the government. So why do they care who is attaching themselves to who?
because they attach their church and state
That's
together.
I was
when
going to
they
say,
did it.
if you remove the church from it, then there is no question. It's just a marriage contract that you're taking and getting signed by the government. Which
They're like, no, a man can't live with a man,
Oh,
or an African American can't live with a white man. No.
Well,
It's like,
and so-
fuck you.
Yeah, the separation of church and state should have been in effect when the government took over marriage, and it should have never been called marriage because marriage was always kind of a religious thing, and to each church their own, I suppose. But like, that doesn't need to be the official thing. So there should have been a different official governmental title for what the government is doing as far as marriage is concerned.
100%.
They adopted a word from the Bible that meant a cultural thing and tried to use it for a political governmental thing, which I think is wrong as fuck.
I don't know.
2015, all states in 2015 says
That makes more sense. I was like, I know I was way out of high school. Like I was
Really?
I knew we weren't in school. I was in college.
Way fucking before that. I was out of college.
I was trying to get out of college. I was like, hey, this shit sucks.
I don't know what happened to my camera.
But continue, Jeremy. We need to stay on track.
Losing some
Did your
fidelity
camera mess
here.
up?
Yeah.
You okay? You look good. Scooch. Scooch to your left.
Oh god.
There you go.
I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry. Can I go back here? Yeah, we're all good. Will and Grace was scandalous for sure.
No, it wasn't though. Not to me. That's why I felt like it was. How long was that socially acceptable before it was legal?
What?
Being gay. Like, we had gay kids in high school.
Not a lot. No, you really got made fun of.
I think yeah.
Not a
I'll say
lot.
Our school name, but
There we
if you got made fun of there if you were gay.
Yeah, but you got made fun of for everything. It's high school.
That's true, but
That's
there
the
was
level.
like
Okay,
there was like one there. No, there was one dude that was a little bit older than us. That was a senior when I was a freshman, and he was in band with us.
I know who
And
you're
he
talking
was-
about.
yeah.
More details.
Okay, so he expressed it, but then you had other ones that didn't because they knew like if I don't express it, people.
We
are
also
gonna
grew
bully
up
the
in a
fuck out of
very
me.
small town with no stoplights and 30 churches. So
That's true.
at the time, when everyone is getting made fun of for literally everything because it's high school, I mean, there was a whole bully movement when we got out of school too, probably before gay marriage was passed. But like, all that was going on, and I always assumed everything was on the same level, and nothing was like everyone was obviously different, and everyone was obviously like not okay with that. Very introspectively wound up and anxious about how different their peers are. That's like what half of the problem in high school is because all these people are going through puberty and don't know what's going on in the world. But so I found it more social, and this is me going to church every other day, but like I found it more socially acceptable than obviously the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the farther you go back. So what I'm saying is like there's a time where it's socially acceptable before it gets passed because the government is slow as shit, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably when San Francisco passed in 2004. What? Since when can you not constantly bully someone without them claiming to be the victim? Says Peacemaker.
If you
That's
haven't seen the
great
TV
fucking
series
show.
Peacemaker,
Yeah.
you should go watch that.
That's an amazing show.
It's an amazing show. It's so bad, but it's so good.
So anyway,
I'm gonna keep trying. Yeah, I'm almost done with my little rant. The '60s. This is leading. So the board, Brown versus V Board was 1954, 1955. 50. I already said that. 1953. So yeah, this is just leading into the 60s, which I'm gonna hand it off to you guys because I think that's what the bulk of this episode is gonna be about, and I'm 45 minutes into it. But just real quick, a couple more. They're not asides, but they're relevant. 1961. So this is 1961. You still have people in Charleston, Carolina. I don't know if this was the first one, but it's still going on, or maybe this was the first one. I should have wrote that down. But you still have Civil War reenactments. And maybe this is when it was gaining popularity or something like that. But you still had people dressing up in Confederate uniforms, acting out the Civil War. And then,
that still happens.
No, I think this was the beginning of it, maybe. Like 1961 was whenever it started first.
When they started doing them.
But
Yeah, and if it's in 61, it doesn't have like, it's not just, we're historical battle tacticians. It's more
dude,
like,
no, the point I was going to make, like, there's no mention of slavery or any reason that was the reason for the Civil War. Like, it's kind of like just washed over, like, oh, we were heroes fighting for what we thought was right. What did you think was right? And then they're kind of like, just to be able to write our own law. It's bullshit. So that's 1961, 1962. Less than 2% of segregated districts have not segregated. This was the one I was looking for earlier. 1962, less than 2% of segregated districts have not segregated schools. And the ones that have were forced. 1963, you get a bombing of a church in Alabama, killing 4 girls, protests, segregations, all that kind of erupts. March on Washington, 1963, Civil Rights Bill, 1964, Voting Rights Act the year after, and then 1968 is what we're getting into. So that's mine.
yeah. Drake, you have like an overall view of MLK himself, correct?
I wrote down, like a overview of his life, some accomplishments, some stuff most people probably won't know. And I wrote a little bit of stuff referencing why the FBI and a few other things were involved, but I saw you wrote way more on that. So I might talk a little on that, but you can, add what you want to as well.
I think, I think the way we did this is Jeremy did let's focus on civil rights in the lead up to MLK. Yours was like let's focus on MLK and what he accomplished in his life in general, and mine was specifically the conspiracy around his death. But I think that yours and mine is going to tie in together a lot, and Jeremy's going to be chiming in with historical significance throughout it. So I think maybe just give us like a 15-minute overview. We'll take the pee break if we need it, and then we'll jump into the conspiracy, and you and I will work in tandem through the timeline.
Sweet. So, early life of Martin Luther King Jr. He was originally named Michael King, and he was born on the January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, to Michael King Sr. and Alberta King. But King Sr. decided to change him and his son's names in 1934.
To what?
I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. So he did have siblings. He had a few. If you want to know how many, go look it up yourself. I know he had his siblings. He had a brother and a sister, and I think
AD.
AD. Yeah, him and AD went through some shit together. I'll get into that. And then he had a sister he was very fond of, and I think 2 half sister and half brother, something like that. Go look it up. His siblings did read him the Bible when he was really young, and that kind of stuck with him because his family was very religious. But King Sr. was kind of a disciplinarian, He liked to regularly whip all of his children as discipline. He'd also have the children whip each other. He said that Junior was the most peculiar child. When you whipped him, he said he would stand there and the tears would run down, but he'd never cry. He said his dad it was
like that ad of the Native American person crying when that person, like, do y'all remember that ad from like the 80s or 90s? Someone littered and then they had a Native American, just a tear roll down their eye.
No,
I think the Simpsons have a bit on it.
Is it? Okay.
All right, hold on. Let me get through this. But yeah, that's kind of fucked up. But he still had a really good relationship with his dad. Like his dad showed him that you shouldn't have to listen to these racist white people and like stand up to racism, segregation. Because for a while, Martin Luther King Jr., he pledged to hate all white people because he saw what his family was going through. But his dad told him that's not your Christian duty, so you don't need to hate.
That's more the Malcolm X vibe, I suppose.
Definitely.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I haven't. Maybe I don't know. Malcolm X heavy. I don't know if he was like demonizing white people, but I know he was pro segregation.
I think
different.
I think Malcolm was pro-violence. He's like whatever means to achieve the goal, and I think MLK was very anti-violence.
He was anti-violent completely.
That was his MO for sure.
But yeah, so his dad just showed him like how to be a civil rights activist, how to fight for your right to party,
How to be a reverend.
And so like getting into his education, dude, he did so much in his lifetime and more than I'll ever dream of doing, especially when it comes to school. Like in his adolescent years, he initially felt resentment against whites due to racial humiliation that he, his family, and his neighbors often had to endure in the segregated South. When he was 13 years old, though, he became the youngest assistant manager of a newspaper delivery station for the Atlanta Journal. But that year, King skipped the ninth grade and was enrolled in Booker T. Washington High School, where he maintained a B+ average.
There's one in Atlanta as well. Booker T here is a magnet school. I think there it's an actual like.
My cousin went to one as well. The high school was the only one in the city for African American students, and it had been formed after black leaders, including King's grandfather, after the city urged Atlanta to create it. So they had to fight to make that. They had to fight for everything. It's fucking crazy.
Still are.
Man, there's so much to this.
When does he start popping off like politically and culturally?
Yeah, so like he goes to many colleges. He goes to Morehouse College. He enrolls in the Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania. He gets his degree in 1951. He does his doctoral studies in theology at Boston University.
He had a doctorate in theology?
Yeah, hold on. Let me get through this because it's crazy. He attended philosophy classes at Harvard.
Oh, that makes sense. He's Dr. Martin Luther King, too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Dr.
Martin Luther King Jr.
At the age, listen to this. This by the age of 25. So everything I just said happened before that. 25. In 1954, he was called to be pastor of the Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, and he received his PhD degree in the same year, or in 1955, a year later. So he got his PhD. He started becoming the pastor at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church.
Do you think him and his dad got their mail mixed up all the time?
I don't know, unless he didn't write Junior.
Yeah, but like, who's keeping track of suffixes in 1960?
That's true, man. Who knows? I doubt they lived together. So yeah, he was called to be that to the pastor. So he ends up marrying Coretta. I think that's how you say it. Coretta Scott. In 1953, they have 4 kids. So some accomplishments. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964 for combating racial equality through nonviolence resistance. He was the youngest winner at the time. I don't know if he's the youngest winner of all, but whatever. But he was at the time the youngest person to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Yes.
He was the youngest. He was the youngest to ever receive it at that point.
Okay, at that point. So yeah. So he did help create the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
Mm-hmm.
We need to kind of save that for in a bit because that's when a lot of his lieutenants.
As an overview, what the they organized peaceful protests around the country in efforts to advance civil rights.
So, and before that, where is it? So yeah, that's he had over 2,500 public speeches and he helped Native Americans with their civil rights. He was an author. This dude did it all. They did a 54. He held 3 different protests, leading thousands on a 54-mile walk from Selma, Alabama to the state capital, Montgomery. One crazy thing, he did not want to publicly endorse any U.S. political party or candidate. And this is a quote from him. He said, "I feel someone must remain in the position of non-alignment so that he can look objectively at both parties and be conscious of both, not the servant or master of either." I Ooh, man,
Dude, that's
that gets
such
me
an awesome
going.
quote, man.
That gets me going, dude. I fucking love that. I'm like, everyone needs to completely agree with that.
Yeah.
That's just one badass thing he said. But so some crazy shit. He tried to commit suicide a few times. He had suicide on his mind throughout his life. One instance, him and his brother were playing. His brother accidentally, like, they were horse playing around in the house, and one of them smacked into their grandma, and she fell down and became unresponsive. So after that, he jumps out a 2-story window.
Oh, yeah,
He thought that he killed her. He thought that, like, he blamed himself. So he jumped out a 2-story window. He lives, and his brother is like, "Hey, she's alive." So he just, like, gets up and walks back in like nothing happened. Later, he skips one of his studies to go watch some parade, and his grandma has a heart attack when he goes and skips the class. So I think AD gets in contact with him, and he's like, "Hey, grandma had a heart attack," or his sister or somebody. And he was like, okay, he was really questioning God at this point.
I think he tried to commit suicide again, right?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is, like, he started questioning God a lot. So he was like, "Oh, is God punishing me for skipping away from my studies in order to go and watch this parade?" So I did that out of, greed for me, and God's punishing me for that. So he killed my grandma. So he's like contemplating that. So when he was brought up in a Baptist home, but he kind of was growing really skeptical of Christianity claims, especially during adolescence. He began to question the literalist teachings preached at his father's church. At 13, he denied the bodily resurrection of Jesus during Sunday school. King said that he found himself unable to identify with the emotional displays and gestures from congregants frequent at his church, and doubted he would ever attain personal satisfaction from religion. He later stated at this point in his life, doubts began to spring forth unrelentingly.
Interesting. I didn't realize he was losing his religion, but I wonder if that's why he started moving. Like later in life, he was really pushing towards social change and being like a cultural leader.
Yeah.
And I wonder if his lack of in fulfillment through church led him to find it in a cultural sense, being a leader of a social movement or whatever.
Well, what's crazy, I'm going to say this and then we can take our break, because I went through his life.
Skill set is my point, but yeah. All right.
Word.
Say what you're saying. Jeremy.
No, you're good.
I'm going to keep talking if it's on me.
Oh, Jeremy, what are you doing?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
All right. So basically, I have an interview of this, and so we can like play it during the break. It's like 4 minutes long, or we can put it in the comments, or we can play it when we get back. It doesn't matter. But he talks about 3.5 years after he gives the "I Have a Dream" speech, he realized that the triple evils of racism, economic exploitation, and militarism, because are cornerstones of the United States. And he was like, he talks about it a lot in this interview, but he's like, war is the worst way that we can go about this. It needs to be nonviolent. So he was very against the
Vietnam War.
Vietnam War. And he was so against that. So I think it really helps tie into like look at like how this dude thinks, what this dude is doing for the fucking country, and how like he's so beyond anyone else. And Hoover and all these other fucks are like, okay, well, we got to take him out. But the interview is that his dream becomes a nightmare, and he talks about how his dream becomes a nightmare, and he woke up to what America actually is. And he's like, it's going to take a long time for us to get to where we need to be.
Yeah, I think at one point, maybe even in that same speech, he alludes to, I think he's talking specifically about the war, but
if you go to my notes, it
says something like America was the great, or like this is the greatest evil, talking about the Vietnam War while scolding America, the U.S. government, basically. Like,
yeah,
basically saying our government is the greatest evil in the world, and that we'll get into this right after the break. I would like to play that video over the break that Drake is talking about, probably.
Jeremy, can you throw it? It's in my notes.
The beginning of the conspiracy is that he was being monitored for being a civil rights advocate because the government was all about doing that at the time. But when shit really kicks off is when he comes out as anti-Vietnam War, which, to allude to what you said earlier, him not wanting to pick a political side, he was hesitant to come out against the Vietnam War. And as soon as he did,
because he's saying like Republicans, they don't have all the. I'm gonna butcher what he said. They don't have. They're not right with God like they say they are, and the Democrats aren't either, and the Democrats aren't this, and he's like, you just kind of have to acknowledge both for what they are, and not be a servant or a master.
Right, and so that was his stance up until then. But as soon as he came out as Vietnam War, he seemed to be more political, and the government took a more vitriolic action. So let's take the break and come back right at the conspiracy.
All right, cool. We are going to play this video, which I don't have set up properly, so it's going to look like this. We won't be in our boxes. We're going to walk away, but you should be able to see it and hear it. Is that cool? Everybody's cool. We're cool.
It's about 4 to 5 minutes.
All right. We're going to step out, but y'all watch us. We'll be back.
I mean, quite obviously, he's so well-spoken, but
I think the end, he kind of goes hard, too. I don't know if
I
you
thought it was done. I'm sorry.
No, there's still like...
When we let it ring from every village and every
maybe it was done.
From every state
no, it's still playing.
and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black...
I just want to pause it a second ago, but I did want to say, like, the war, there was... we touched on it last episode. I can't remember what it was, but there's a war on drugs. There's a war on terrorism. There's a war on these ideas. Mm-hmm. And this is really resonating to me because it's like a blank check for the military-industrial complex. Like the war on terrorism, like that's not an actual thing. You can't like go out and kill terrorism, right?
Yeah.
Well, and so the civil rights and the civil unrest in these times, also the anti-war crowd. There was a war on them, but it was a covert war. This is when our private sectors, CIA, FBI, this is when these people popped off the hardest. It's 20 years post World War II. It's 10 years after they got their new name. All the funding's figured out. Now the government doesn't like the things these people are saying, and so they go hot and heavy. And yeah, let's finish this video and dive into it.
Yeah.
Men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Damn, goosebumps. I don't think you get to watch that and not have goosebumps.
Dude, he's so intelligent, dude. It's insane. I mean, it makes sense with all the college he had.
I'm going to paint the context of the time we're talking about as far as the his assassination, the conspiracy goes. So it's 1968. It's March and April's the lead up. He's been giving speeches and stuff. I read a book by an author named William Pepper. The name of the book escapes me. It came out in 2016.
How long did you spend on this book and you don't know the name of it?
You don't look at the name, dude. You look at the pages.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Anyway,
you still look at the title.
Let's preface this. This author he's a lawyer who wrote a book. He ended up representing James O'Ray, who is the accused assassin. Also Sirhan Sirhan, who is the accused assassin for RFK, for Robert Kennedy. But anyway, he's writing this book, and he says in 1967 he wrote an article about the horrors of the Vietnam War that was in the January issue of Ramparts magazine, and him and King had a conversation about that, and he thinks it opened King's eyes up to the horrors of the Vietnam War. Mind you, the Vietnam War is the first war on TV. It's the first time that media companies and the government had to decide what they show, and a lot of stuff got through. It was the first time anyone had seen anything about, like, we grew up during the Afghan war, obviously, the war in Iraq, whatever. And those videos are bombs going off, but you don't see people in those videos. So Vietnam wasn't that way. Vietnam was it was like jungle warfare.
Vietnam.
There's a lot of bombing and napalm bombing, but there weren't a lot of cameras and planes. So the images that came back from Vietnam of people missing limbs and all this stuff struck a chord in America, and half of them became the hippie movement. We're going to pop off anti-war, the hell with all this. While this is all happening, MLK is famous and fighting for civil rights, and takes a turn after he sees this guy's article and starts going anti-war as well, to the extent that there was like a proposed presidential ticket for King and this other guy named Spock, which the only reason I remember his name is because it's also in Star Trek. But and RFK at the same time is trying to get King to give him his, what do you call it when you recommend him? It doesn't matter. So King is in the midst of all this, and there's a sanitation worker strike in Memphis, and King shows up to speak. Memphis has basically been on fire. And King shows up. They went to schools to try to get young people to come to the march or whatever, and somehow a scuffle popped off and a girl got injured by cops, but the rumor started that she was killed. And then so King goes on this march and has to get pulled out of the middle of it because people just start busting windows and tearing the street up, and it turns into a riot. And so a car pulls up, he gets in and leaves. And they hang on, somehow there's another march. And the state attorney is trying to get a restraining order on King and his entourage so they can't do another march. A judge allows it, and King got the SCLC to run it because they didn't run the first one, so that it's nonviolent. And like they're like, yeah, let's get some police along the lines. Let's keep everybody in order. This is a show of sentiment, not a show of force. But
a lot of standoffs happen with the activists and all that, and that put MLK in jail a lot.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I mean, even being nonviolent, he would definitely be in jail. Yeah.
That's what's crazy is like he wasn't out there throwing fists or throwing anything. He just got in trouble because he's leading the march.
Yeah, and so the new march that's planned is okay. So like a month from now, he's supposed to lead a Poor People's Commission or Poor People's Conflagration of some kind, some type of committee by name. He's leading a march to DC, and it's supposed to be the biggest march that's ever happened because it's named the Poor People March, not the Civil Rights March or whatever. And all the anti-Vietnam War people are showing up. All the
Poor
Civil
People's
Rights
Campaign.
People. There you go, Poor People's Campaign. So people who are poor, people who have had to fight for civil rights, and people who are anti-Vietnam are all going to show up to this thing, and he's going to walk to DC, and the government couldn't allow that. So he set up a second one in Memphis. That's why he's in Memphis when he gets assassinated.
That's the one I was talking about, the 54 mile where they start in Alabama and they end in Montgomery.
Exactly. So it's planned for April 5th. It got moved to April 8th. Basically, King he usually stays at the Rivermont, but the Rivermont's full or something, so they have to go to the Lorraine Hotel. He is given room 302, which is a second floor balcony looking towards the parking lot and like the street. He calls and changes it to a first floor hotel room that faces inward to a courtyard. And then the hotel says someone calls them back and says, no, put us back in the 302 room. So that's a section of the conspiracy. And then, hey, Jeremy, pull up that video you had, and let's give him, let's feed like the straight and narrow, and let me bounce off of that, because The real story is that James Earl Ray is down there with a rifle
On April 4th, 1968, a shot rings out near the
shoots
Lorenz out.
MLK while he's on the balcony. And then MLK is pronounced dead at the hospital.
Are we ready for this video yet? I think.
And James Earl Ray flees. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to pause and talk when I feel necessary, so get ready to change the camera.
On April 4th, 1968, a shot rings out near the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. And by the time people realize what's going on, American icon and civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay, hang on. Do you see this picture?
Yeah.
See two guys are wearing ties and one guy's not wearing a tie?
Yes.
All right.
has been shot and will soon be dead. The killing sets off a month-long manhunt spanning multiple countries searching for this man, an escaped convict, a career criminal, a con man, and an amateur porn director named James Earl Ray.
Wow, I didn't know that.
In his book,
The amateur pornography thing is pretty funny, actually.
I didn't see any information that he was a
I bet it's all missionary.
on his trail, Hampton Side explores the bizarre behavior of James Earl Ray leading up to and following the assassination of Dr. King. A year before the killing, Ray was sitting in a Missouri prison serving year 7 of a 20-year sentence for armed robbery. And then
this is 67. He commits armed robbery and he is in prison. He escapes prison, but there is evidence that Herbert Hoover paid the warden to allow James Earl Ray to escape.
He also is the reason that the FBI and the NSA and the CIA wiretapped his house and stalked him, Martin Luther King, for the remainder of his life until his death.
Yeah, it was like 63 or 64 up until 68. And
yeah, I think I have it.
It was every branch of military intelligence at the time.
We're watching MLK Jr.
The FBI was watching him. The CIA had bugged everything.
The CIA declassified documents in 2017 revealed the agency was investigating possible links between King and communism after a Washington Post article dated November 4th, 1964, claimed he was invited to the Soviet Union and that Ralph Abernathy, the spokesman for King, Abernathy, as spokesman for King, refused to comment on the source of the invitation. Mail belonging to King and other civil rights activists were intercepted by the CIA program. HT Lingual, a secret project of the the United States CIA to intercept mail destined for the Soviet Union and China, operated from 1952 until 1973.
Yeah. And
that was a lot.
Hang on. So that's just precedence. They could send something from the Soviet Union to whoever they wanted to and wiretap whoever they wanted to. That's how they're using this operation. And that's just the CIA.
Yeah, that's just the CIA.
So the FBI is investigating him for the previous riot and like being a civil rights leader. He's a like national person or whatever. So they're bugging everything. The NSA is intercepting stuff, and the Army Intelligence Branch, specifically the OS office within Army Intelligence, it has people bugging him. Like, there's 3 people taking pictures of him the whole time he's in this hotel room. 3 may be embellishing, but there's at least the CIA is taking pictures and has the room bugged. They already moved the room back to where they wanted it to. There's a room across town that the FBI has bugged because the FBI knows where he stays when he comes here, but he didn't get to stay in that hotel. It's like, to the nth degree, they're following this man for 5 years straight and his entire family. His home was bugged.
Yeah.
I have it down here on a list somewhere. Office of Securities is a small division with this in the CIA that was illegally spying on him because they were spying on every civil rights leader. So the CIA was civil rights leaders. I think the FBI was something else. But that same office is the one that like hired Sam Giancana to try and kill Castro. We talked about that in an episode. I don't remember what episode it was. I think it was the JFK episode because the government had an entire plot to pay the mob to kill Castro.
Yep.
And by the government, it's this office, and this office is specifically spying on MLK. that same office had a very good relationship with the FBI in that they hired former FBI agents, and one of their consultants literally did Herbert Hoover's personal taxes, according to this book I read.
That's pretty crazy.
So, and the CIA was going through, I think you may have said this, Operation COA or CHOA.
I said it's HT lingual.
Okay, well, there's two.
They were spying on the mail. See, that's just one with MLK. See, that's why they wanted to fucking kill him, man. Nobody wanted him alive. Just like I was saying before the break, he knew too much. He thought differently. He was like JFK, where it was like this man. JFK was a little bit more shady than
and
MLK.
So, Operation COA was responsible for domestic surveillance and intelligence gathering on opponents of the Vietnam War. So he's got like 3 crosshairs on him for 3 different views that he has from 3 different government intelligence agencies.
Yep. Hoover wanted him dead. Hoover wanted him dead instantly. Lyndon B. Johnson said that King was a hypocritical preacher.
Yeah, so this says the OS intercepted mail in illegally entered hotel rooms and to make photocopies of his documents. They were like taking photocopies of receipts and shit.
They had allegations on King against adultery. I don't know if you saw that. They sent him an anonymous letter. The FBI sent him a threatening anonymous letter.
Yeah, we were talking about the CIA. I was about to get to the FBI.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, keep going, because I don't have that part down.
No, they sent him a threatening anonymous letter, which he interpreted as an attempt to make him commit suicide. Like they knew he was suicidal. They knew he was suicidal. So that's what they used it to their advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear about his suicide attempts until tonight, but I knew there was a letter signed by Hoover, like telling him you should just commit suicide and be better for everybody.
God damn.
So while the CIA is monitoring everything, the FBI is running the media. Essentially,
we touched on that last week, how they were like very tied into the media, like it was Hoover's media.
Like part of this came out in the church committee, but they were selectively leaking info. There was a stat where it was like in 1967 or 8, the FBI had it was 1963 through 1968. They had like 11 or 1,000 books printed or written with their information, like exactly what the church committee went over, the Operation Mockingbird. They're injecting.
Drake, are you awake? I think my internet's crashing, dude.
No, I'm fine. I think Drake froze. Anyway, they're injecting their information in the culture through 1,000 books over 5 years. 200 of those books came in 1968. Surrounding this type of stuff. To the extent that Deloche, the assistant director, recommended.
It's gonna mess everything up.
Just big screen. Oh, you can't just big screen me.
I can fix it real quick. You're good.
So Deloche, the assistant director, recommended writing a book with an author. This is like in a memo within the FBI, who was friendly to the FBI to get rid of the conspiracy. This is all after James Earl Ray gets arrested. We'll get into all that. And they also wrote articles about MLK's team and wife, disparaging them for putting out the ideas of the conspiracy. But they printed those stories before anyone said anything publicly because they were still wiretapping them. So they had their personal conversations and were like using them in the press.
Pretty crazy, dude.
Yeah, I have another. And so the government, like, those with power, it goes all the way down to the MPD, the Memphis Police Department. They're also implicated in malfeasance, to put it lightly. Actually, people think that the main shooter was the head of the armory. Okay. Jump back to that video.
Hang on, let's get Drake back in here.
Okay. Dude, I don't know what just happened. My Discord just like shit me out and then brought me right back.
You're fine. I think we recovered. Jump back into this video
Hang
though.
on, let me fix this real quick. There we go. That's good.
That was very stressful.
And
We're
then
good. Slight
let's see
technical
what else-
difficulties, but it
let's
wouldn't be
see
a
what else
show
this
without
guy
it.
says wrong. I
Oh,
basically just want to deconstruct this video so I can keep my own track because
Go
I
ahead.
read 14 chapters and there wasn't a through line.
Then one day, he slips out of prison on a bread truck. Following his escape, Ray
Okay, so I said he was released, right?
So, dude, I
You
know
said
we
he
were talking about this video before the
escaped.
show, but like there's inaccuracies that this guy's reporting. So the way we interpret it was this video is this guy's, he's presenting the video, but it's the official government record of what happened. I don't think this is what really happened. I think this is what the narrative is being driven right now of what happened.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the Kennedy assassination in that like Oswald acted alone, shot this many shots from the schoolbook depository. Shit like that. Never went to, or never was a CIA asset or whatever. But so this guy's giving the official state story of James Earl Ray. And so in 67, he does break out of prison. But there is evidence, and by evidence I mean it's like almost certain because there's a money trail that Hoover had his second in command pay the Dixie mob, who's running Missouri, to pay the warden to release James Earl Ray. And by release, like allow him to escape. Like they knew it was going to happen. It was set up and the warden was paid off by the government, by Hoover specifically. Because Hoover had a vendetta against MLK.
Yep.
his escape, Ray spends a few months.
So they blame
bouncing around
communism
the US.
on him. Sorry, they blame communism on him.
They blamed
Communism.
communism on MLK.
No, they claimed he was a communist.
Claimed he was a communist. Apparently, a few of his lieutenants were allegedly communist. I don't know if that's fact or fiction.
Yeah,
But
no,
I know they had allegations against being communists themselves.
they pinned everything they could on him.
US and Canada before landing in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, it's unclear exactly how long he was in Alabama, but it was at least long enough for him to buy a car and secure a new Alabama driver's license.
Okay, this guy's
Hold
going to
on. So, just because he was against Vietnam, he's a communist. That's what Hoover is. Okay, sorry. Continue. I just had to say that.
So this guy just said that James Earl Ray fled to Canada and then moved to Alabama long enough to get a car and an apartment or something like that. So what happens is he does escape and he does flee to Canada. He's pretty good at taking pseudonyms for himself or identities and changing his name and things like this. But when he's in Canada, he specifically gets the identity of Galt, Eric S. Galt. And there's this book outlines how it was kind of given to him by the US government because Eric Galt in Canada works at, I forget what it was, but he had top secret US clearance and he was working where he was working because it was like information gathering. Like they're making the shit that you put in bombs or shit like that. It was a warehouse, factory type situation, but it was like a really under wraps. This is secret shit factory. And when I say it, it sounds like bullshit. Y'all should read this book. And Eric Galt works there. He has top secret U.S. clearance, and James Earl Ray was given that identity to steal to get a passport because he was trying to get a passport out of Canada and get the fuck out of Dodge. He was given that, so if anyone pulled him over, when they pulled his file, it would pop up that he's like, he has top secret clearance, no fuck with him. So they were keeping him as the patsy running around for a long time. And so when he escapes to Canada, he's staying around the docks and trying to get on a ship out of Canada. He's trying to find a merchant marine to give him fake papers or just put him in a box and ship him the fuck out. He's trying to get out while stealing identities. He meets this guy named Raul in Canada. And the government claims that Raul doesn't exist, but there's a lot of evidence to refute that. So we'll go through the evidence to refute it and say fuck the government. But he meets Raul. Raul tells him, I'll pay you and I can get you papers if you help me run guns on ships out of Canada. And then a little bit after that, he's making money helping Raul or whatever. Raul goes, hey, you got to move to Alabama because we're about to start running guns over the south border, and I'll get you papers when we're down there. And he's making money the whole time, so he's like, okay, whatever. Yeah, I just don't want to get caught as a former felon. Raul buys him the car and gives him money because he wants him to buy photography equipment and something else and a rifle. And I think now we get back to the video and see where he goes from here.
Now, at this time, there are a number of pseudonyms, including Eric Starvo Galt.
Eric Galt. That was given to him. He also had another one, which I think I have written down.
Dude,
he had a bunch.
At some point, they say I think he had facial construction.
Yeah, he got a nose job done. That was after he moved back to the States. He had a Canadian passport under the name Ramon George Snide. This is after he gets out, though.
Ship it.
And so that Mustang that he buys when he moves back to Alabama is registered under Eric S. Galt. So when it's found, they have to trace that, but they trace that back to his other pseudonym, which was James Willard, which he used to procure the boarding house where he's supposed to have shot MLK from.
This was nothing new to Ray. Even when he was a child, his father made the family go by fake names in order to avoid his own run-ins with the law. And while he was in Birmingham, Galt, aka James Earl Ray, ordered some camera equipment through the mail. And when it arrived, he headed on south to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. His plan was simple. He was going to pass himself off as a professional porn director while building a catalog of footage with Mexican prostitutes.
Okay.
Ooh, okay.
The story of the book is that Raul would come into town and take that car whenever he wanted to, because Raul is working for the. I have it written.
Is it the FBI?
No, he's working for a mob family, Marcelo. He's working for the Marcelo family out of Houston, and he travels everywhere running guns. And this is how deep it gets. He's getting the guns from that Army intelligence section. There's a commander on a base who is like writing off guns. He's just cooking the books and selling guns to the Marcelo family, who is then running them around the country. And so this Raul guy is taking that car back and forth to Mexico, while James Earl Ray is like chilling in Alabama trying to figure out what he's supposed to do next. At some point, he makes it to California and back, because all he had to get a hold of Raul was a number in New Orleans, which is where the Marcelo family is based out of. And so his lack of communication led him to like do different things. Like Raul will go, hey, go to California and I'll meet you there in 2 weeks or whatever. And he's living paycheck to paycheck off of what Raul will give him based on what he needs to do for Raul, basically. And so, man, when I say it out loud, it sounds a little bit more crazy, but the book really enunciates how real it seems. So let's go back to the video.
Yeah.
Oh, great. What do you have?
No, I was just talking about me personally. I have never researched anything on this man at all, so this is all brand new to me.
Well, it is the government's story that Raul never existed, but this lawyer in this book found the guy. So.
Also sleeping with some of them on the side. Now remember, this was just months before the assassination. Now this lasted for a little while before Ray decided to give up on his dream life and leave Mexico after he had a falling out with a hooker that he had been dating. So he headed up
Ray says he was actually in California.
California way to work on the presidential campaign of George Wallace.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
That guy in that hat behind him looks sketchy as hell. But
I bet he's holding a big ass gun under that coat.
This book goes over where Ray was when he was in California, and it never brought up this politician's name at all. Eventually, after Ray gets caught, the government has to explain why he would kill MLK, and all they can come up with is like racist anecdotes or whatever. But there's a lot. No eyewitness has ever gone like, oh yeah, that guy was a huge racist. So I mean, he's seen at diners all the time with this Raul guy who is obviously like Latin descent, like darker skin, dark hair, things like that.
Yes, that George Wallace. Meanwhile,
actually, there's a story in the book of him driving back and forth from either Alabama or New Orleans with like a hippie couple, some guy named
What are they
Sneed
hippies?
or something like that.
They're fucking hippies.
I don't know,
They smoke pot and they don't shower.
It paints a very different picture from him following a presidential campaign from New Orleans and back, you know?
While Ray was also taking bartending and dancing
I'm a
classes.
hippie.
Oh, and he got facial reconstruction surgery. And this
is when he gets the nose
when
job.
He decided that he was going to kill Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, there are mixed reports about his motivations. James Earl Ray was certainly a super racist, but it looks like greed may have also played a factor. Now, Ray was under the impression that he was going to be able to collect bounties from a cabal of rich Southerners for killing Dr. King. And he also assumed that a white man would never be convicted for killing a black man in the South in the 1960s.
Oh, that's bullshit.
No, dude, there's cases.
No evidence to prove that he is a racist.
I was going to say there was cases before that there was no conviction against these white people that were killing black people. Like that was like a historical fact. So I'm agreeing with what I'm saying. Like not agreeing with what he was saying. I'm saying there was precedence that you wouldn't be tried.
Right, which is fair, but there was a story about him being offered a job while he was in prison to clean dorms of something. But people in the prison had told him that people who had taken that job had gotten years added on their sentence just by the fact of being around drugs, which you're not allowed to be, but people in the dorms he was supposed to clean were drinking alcohol and smoking weed. So he was like, fuck that, I don't want to go. But the story is that he was like, no, I won't do that. I'm not going to clean up after a black people situation. And so like you're taking the dude's account against like the government's account. But you would think that if he's a like raging racist who is so devout to kill Martin Luther King Jr., that he wouldn't then recant and be like, no, I didn't do it. I'm not a racist. Like that. If you have a change of heart and you're not racist anymore, you probably still go, what I did was terrible, you know?
Right.
Did he forget? Is it him or Jack Ruby that forgot about shooting completely?
That's Sirhan. That's who killed Robert F. Kennedy.
Oh, okay. I thought that Jack Ruby also said that he forgot. He just zoned out because it was like a MK Ultra type of deal.
It may have been him too, because his brain was also fried by MK Ultra. So
yeah,
that's up to interpretation, I guess.
What about James Earl Ray? Was he ever tied to anything with the CIA or MK Ultra?
I didn't read about that at all. I read about that.
I couldn't find anything. I didn't dig too deep, but
it was either barely mentioned in the beginning of the book or it was a different video I watched.
And it's probably impossible to fucking prove it anyway, so.
Yeah. All right, let's see what else this bald fuck has to say.
And even if he were convicted, he assumed that when Wallace inevitably became president, he would pardon Ray, not only for the assassination, but
Wallace was the independent candidate. He wasn't Republican or Democrat.
Yeah, he had like zero shot. He was just what was that guy?
Racist third person.
Yeah. But who's that guy that took out ads and cost George Bush Sr.? He led to Bill Clinton winning. What's that guy's name?
I think I know who you're talking about. I can't remember though. I think was it the same guy that rented out like a Super Bowl ad or something, and instead of like a
yeah, he just talked the whole time.
Yeah, it was just like it wasn't like a 30-minute ad, but it might have been like a 5-minute ad. Him just going, hey, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, instead of like an attack ad or something like that. It's an aside for sure.
Yeah, it's like that guy.
all his other
Actually, that guy probably had a better chance.
And keep in mind, he's still an escaped convict.
20 till 9.
Oh, and just for good measure, he also apparently thought that the assassination would get him in good with the African nation of Rhodesia,
this gets
a country
crazy.
that is now Zimbabwe. At the time, that country was ruled by a white minority, and Ray had designs to become a mercenary in Africa.
So when this guy's not totally wrong. Social constructs. Okay, let's read it. we're all reading it anyways, right? Social constructs that are so complex and difficult to understand that humans can't help but to draw lines between things, unintentionally resulting from primal survival instincts. We must identify the unknown. I suspect religion is also a byproduct of the social phenomenon. Yeah. No, the wanting to definitely like categorizing things.
Yeah, religion is wanting to be accepted and having, you just don't know, but you're just like, at least I can believe this.
Yeah. Well, like any train of thought that is, I don't know, you have to be pliable. You can't just be so resolute on literally everything you believe, right?
Only
you
sit
have to be
still in
willing
absolutes.
Yeah. You have to be willing to hear the opposing ideas.
Did you just quote Star Wars?
Is it Kenobi? Tells
Kenobi,
Anakin that?
it is. Yeah, touche.
So he traveled on to Atlanta, where he stalked Dr. King, eventually making his way back over to Birmingham, where he purchased a rifle and a scope.
Okay, he did purchase a rifle and a scope. This is a very interesting part. So James Earl Ray is living in Memphis. He is listening to this dude named Raul. Raul tells him to go buy a rifle at this specific store because we need to tell the people we're about to sell a bunch of guns to what they're getting, essentially. And so he goes and buys a rifle and brings it back, and Raul looks at it and goes, no, not that one. That one's bad. Circled a different rifle in a brochure he got when he bought the first one, and he goes and exchanges it. And this is all on record through the gun store. So, like, he bought a rifle and took it back the next day, which I think proves that, like, what would be his reasoning to switch out the rifles if they're both rifles? Okay, like, he didn't. The other one was a 243, and the one that he ended up with was a 30-06. I don't know calibers that well, but I'm pretty sure a 243 goes through a human. Like,
yeah,
there's seemingly no purpose for him to switch out the rifles, but he definitely did. So this is what this video kind of skirts over.
He eventually followed Dr. King up in Memphis, where Dr. King was organizing a March in the Poor People's Campaign. And that is where James Earl Ray took that fatal shot from the bathroom window of a rooming house across the street from the Lorraine Motel.
This is another interesting anecdote.
What's so crazy is they all do it from like a hidden building.
Yeah. So at the time of the shooting, there's a tree in front of this window. You can't shoot a rifle through it. There's also hedges, and there's also brush behind the boarding house. Where MLK got shot from is from the brush behind the boarding house. It's not from the window. The brush was removed after, so it would look like there was no cover for someone to hide behind, but someone popped up and shot over the brush and then went back down so you couldn't see him and went through the restaurant in the bottom of the boarding house. I need to hurry up because I only have 20 minutes to get all this shit out. So all this shit is kind of the way he could have never made that shot from the window. It wasn't him.
Freeze frame.
Now, police arrived on the scene pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Ray was forced to leave a bundle containing his rifle and all his belongings on the street near the rooming house.
Okay, the bundle is dropped outside of Canopy Amusement Company. The owner of Canopy Amusement Company says, no, I heard the bundle drop 10 minutes before the shot was shot. There's two guns.
Sounds oddly similar to JFK.
They did, yeah, no. For real, they did ballistics testing on the gun that they found, and it was not the same bullet that went into MLK. Like, the rifling on the bullet out of the rifle that they recovered was like 11.5 rotations per foot or something. Something like that. And the other one was 10. So they're like not the same gun.
It's crazy to think that the CIA, the FBI, all these entities have like a playbook on how to do this stuff. And to me, that's kind of evidence of it. Like, oh, we know how to do this now. And so it's like, they get better at it each time. Oh, we have to make sure to drop this here. So there's evidence there when we go look for it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And they put it in Hollywood movies.
Yeah. I mean, 5 years prior to this, JFK is assassinated. And I think the benefit of them being so bad at it during JFK is no one can figure out what the fuck happened. But it was so precise in MLK that it's pretty easy to jump back up the tree of what is going on. It's like, it's borderline proven. So anyway, in this bundle, it's the rifles in there, and there's like 9 bullets. The serial number traced back to the rifle he bought, under the name Harvey Lohmeyer. Had a 2x scope, 2.7x scope. So the bundle was a bedspread, an overnight bag with toiletries, pliers, a hammer, a radio, 2 cans of beer, and an April 4th edition of a local newspaper. And so, like, why are you bundling up the newspaper?
Dude, it's the same thing I just said.
If you're clearing a room of all the shit, like, leave the fucking newspaper. What are you doing?
It's like it's tying that piece of evidence to the date, and it's like oh god, it's such fabrication.
Yeah. It's so planned.
Okay, and so I'm gonna totally divert from the video at this point. You can leave it on 3 screen because I want to see y'all's faces while I say this shit. So the government's point of view is that James Earl Ray shoots from the 2nd floor of this boarding house through the bathroom window, but there's a tree in the way, and kills Martin Luther King, runs the fuck out, jumps in his white Mustang, and takes off, eventually making it to Canada, where he then flies to Britain under a pseudonym. He was interested in going to Rhodesia, but he wanted to either go to South America or an African country because they wouldn't extradite him if they figured out who he was.
He touches it on that video. It was Africa. It was the nation that became Zimbabwe.
He was saying it Rhodesia for racist reasons, but James Earl Jones' reason is, oh no, South America and Africa don't extradite people.
You said James Earl Jones.
Oh, James Earl Ray. I'm sorry. I knew I was going to do that.
Oh, no disrespect to Darth Vader, Mufasa. Yeah. The list goes on.
I was doing that every time I fucking heard the name. So he does eventually make it out there. And then they catch him when he's trying to go to Belgium because he has 2 different passports and one of them is spelled wrong. And then they extradite him back to the States. He goes to prison, blah, blah, blah. But I think what really happened was he is let out of prison as a patsy. He runs to Canada to get on a boat or change his identity so he can fly out of Canada. He meets Raul, who's running guns for the Marcello family, which is tied into H.L. Hunt and Herbert Hoover through a series of the government is absolutely and always has been involved with the mob. H.L. Hunt is a rich Texas oil man who runs a radio show using FBI information to lambast MLK. But through all this, he meets Raul in Canada. Raul tells him to go back to Alabama. Raul buys him the car and gives him money, and then tells him to buy photo equipment, then tells him to buy a gun, then tells him to switch the gun. Then they're supposed to have a meeting, and Raul takes the gun and says, "Leave me the car. I might need to use it in a few hours." So James O'Ray gets in the white Mustang and takes it to a gas station because he knew the spare was flat and wanted to change it. So if Raul popped a tire, he'd have a spare and he could get out of wherever he needed to be because he knew Raul was doing fucking crazy shit. In the midst of that, sees a ambulance and a police car drive by and decides to run because shit was popping off where he was in Memphis. And he's a felon doing sketchy shit with Raul. No. One of his pseudonyms was Ramon Snide or something. That's what he got caught saying his name was. He, I don't know. Then he flees. Then he gets to Canada and caught. The end of the story is kind of the same, but his reasoning for being there is different. But there's a lot of interesting information about this Raul character and how many people were looking at MLK and what probably really happened that day. I'm trying to keep my eye on time. There's so much shit and I've just absorbed it, so it's hard to regurgitate it. But so the house, the rooming house he was living in, I think they call it a boarding.
It was like a communal thing, right?
Yeah, it was like half-assed. It was like a long-term hotel before they existed. So it's right above this place called James's Grill, who is owned and operated by this guy named Lloyd Jowers. He was a cop from 46 to 48. Then he bought a cab company. Then he worked for another one. Then he bought the grill. He was really good friends with Frank Lombardo, who was a lieutenant in the Marcello family. Lombardo answers to Marcello. He said that he got paid from New Orleans. It came on a produce truck, and it was the Marcello family to put together the murder of MLK. And he confirmed to his live-in girlfriend at the grill by taking the gun apart immediately after the shooting that he was heavily involved. He was the one who eventually got rid of the rifle. He gave it to a taxi driver who threw it in a river.
Shit.
If you read the whole book, it sounds a lot less crazy than he gave it to a taxi driver.
I was about to say, you just walk down the street, but hey,
relationship in there.
Can you throw this in the river when you pass by? Don't ask any questions.
They could make a super funny movie out of this. They just make it like a comedy, of him doing that, not killing him. I'm not talking about that.
Like a Mr. Bean trying to do an assassination.
Yeah. No. Oh my god.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
So this Lloyd Jowers guy in the mid-90s, like 94 or something, finally comes clean. And his whole story is that Lombardo paid him $1 million to then pay out to whoever committed the crime, and because his bar was so close to the Lorraine. And Lombardo knew that the government was going to force him into the Lorraine. They were going to move his hotels to where they knew where he was going to be. They contacted the mob to get with the head of this restaurant, which had a boarding house above it, so they could put their patsy in the boarding house, shoot from that restaurant, and have everything taken care of with that guy there who would keep his staff out of the way and all the other residents and facilitate shit. So this guy is facilitating for the mob, who's facilitating for the FBI.
I just said it in chat earlier. The mob's just an asset for the government, right?
Yeah, exactly. They were, especially Hoover and the Dixie mob, which is tangential to the Marcello clan. But and so in 94, he comes out and he's like, I saw James Earl Jones at the meeting at my restaurant the day before. Raul exists. I've seen him. I know who he works for because I was working with other people. So this guy got the best shooter of the Memphis Police Department, who ran the armory, to shoot MLK from the bushes behind his boarding house. Kept his secret for a long time, but the secret was getting out because he had an interracial affair in 1967 or something like that. So no one could hold their fucking tongue. And then there's a whole side story about how Raul is real, that deals with a lady named Glinda who lived in Houston. Apparently, Raul worked directly under Marcello, who is based in Houston. The Lombardo guy had ties to New Orleans, but was in Memphis. So this family kind of has this, they're controlling trucks for produce companies. So everywhere that produce company goes, they kind of have a footing. And so that was their footing in Memphis. That's how the owner of that restaurant knew who he was, because that's where he got his vegetables from, as well as other things. He was indebted to the Lombardo guy because he found his mistress in bed with a Hispanic man and killed him, and was indebted to that guy for hiding the body, because his girlfriend, when she's confessing everything, goes, I had an affair and I never saw that dude again after Lloyd, whatever his name is, walked in and took him out at gunpoint. And by took him out, I mean walked him out. I knew I had way too much information.
You had a lot.
There's a lot of names to keep up with too.
And so I separated everything by category, tried to, and it's more of events or places or people. And one of them is additional suspects. So I'm going to run through these real quick. When MLK is in Memphis, he's supposed to have a dinner with Reverend Kyle. Reverend Kyle lied to police about his account, and it seemed like his whole scenario to have that dinner was fake. The reason MLK was on the balcony at 6 p.m. is because he was yelling down to people who were about to leave for this dinner that like he was talking to them and he wasn't ready yet. And it was him and those other two dudes. Oh my God, I just remembered another point I have to get to before we end. So that's Reverend Kyle. He's a plant. Reverend Kyle's a plant. McCullough, I didn't write his first name down, was also in the hotel rooms. He was former military and undercover for the CIA, and he was within MLK's entourage. And I'm going to say this without any preface because I literally don't have time. There were two groups of like super top secret Army intelligence squads. There was 8 people in the squad, and they were in 2 different spots, and they had snipers trained on MLK when James Earl Ray shot him. They thought they failed because they were supposed to kill him and a guy that he was yelling down to in the parking lot that wasn't undercover. They only knew that people were undercover because they weren't wearing a tie. They were wearing a sweater under a thing or whatever.
Was that picture you were pointing out earlier?
That's why I pointed that out. And they thought they failed because he got shot, and they were like, let's get to South or West Memphis or something, get the fuck out of here, and just left. And then this lawyer was talking to like 2 different people. One of them was the best friend of a guy who had been murdered like 2 years after the assassination attempt or something. And that whole group thought they were trying to clean the record by killing the people who had been sent there. And then this other guy he was talking to went under a fake name and lived in South America and was like, I will only talk to you through this one guy who I still know in America who's another lawyer. And I'm going to say I'm not going to answer if I'm not going to answer type shit. But he was like, yes, I was down there. There were 2 squads. We were all above the 2nd floor. One of them said they were on the fire department, which was directly next to the boarding house. I forget what the other ones were. But, okay, so... These are
FBI agents you're talking about?
No, these are Army intelligence operatives.
Oh, God.
It's like an Army squad of 8 guys. There's 2 at each rank, however high the rank goes or whatever. But it's like, don't ever talk about this again, please.
What were they even doing there? Like, if it was a genuine assassination, just like a organic thing somebody was doing on their own, why would the military? Why would the Army intelligence be there with trained guns, waiting for it to happen?
Right, because it wasn't. Because they were backup.
Right, and same thing with JFK.
So, James Earl Ray's entire story, the entire story of James Earl Ray is being set up to be the patsy. Let's get him the same fucking car. Let's make him go buy the same fucking gun. Oh, he didn't. Let's exchange it the next day. All this shit. So he fits perfectly in this timeline when there's a tangential timeline that Raul and Army intelligence, the FBI, and the CIA are all running. The CIA have them tapped. They're taking pictures the whole time. Army intelligence has guns trained on him. They're waiting for Raul to walk out a Memphis Police Department guy to shoot him because he's the lowest on the totem pole. We can burn the Memphis Police Department. Fuck them. We got to get rid of King. And so they're all triangulated. They all pull him out on the balcony, and the Army thinks they failed because he gets shot by someone else because they didn't get to kill the other guy in the parking lot. There's 2 agents in the room. The room is bugged. The room he was supposed to be in is bugged.
In a way, it feels more sloppy than JFK.
I mean, yeah, a little bit, because he didn't even actually die at the scene. He died at the hospital.
That's terrible.
There's nurses' witnesses. This is the most chord striking moment of this book. It's talking about MLK at the hospital, and this lawyer who wrote the book finds nurses who worked at that hospital who are witnesses, and they say that the lead surgeon ran in and said, "Why is everyone trying to help this racist expletive? Everyone get the hell out." It's him and like a army official or someone in the mob or someone who was involved in the assassination. I really should have wrote that down. I didn't. But it's that surgeon and another guy whose name is all throughout this book. And the surgeon smothers a incapacitated MLK in the surgery room because he wasn't dead yet. And like his spinal cord had been severed by the bullet, so he was not doing well, but the machine was still beeping.
What book is this again?
You're right. I should look that up.
You didn't have the title earlier. You said you read this audiobook, and didn't catch the title somehow.
We just need to throw this book out so people aren't just questioning. And
yeah, I'll drop
because that's a lot of info to just throw out there.
No, it's crazy to think like if there was a chance that he was going to live.
It's called The Plot to Kill King.
Okay, that's way more simple than I thought.
Yeah. Let me see if I can drop this Amazon link in the chat real quick. It is crazy.
I'll do it. Unless you already had it.
Continue your rant, Clayton. Not your rant, but your input.
So at the end of the book, it's this lawyer has he puts on a trial on HBO because he can't get another trial for James Earl Jones to the government, so he puts on a mock one. And he has like a real other lawyer who's like adversarial.
Is this something I could go watch on HBO right now?
I don't know, probably not right now. You might be able to find it though. It's William Pepper is the author. They have a mock trial, and the jury, like, they get a real retired judge, they get a real adversarial other lawyer who wants to do it for the publicity. They get a real jury. They do the jury selection. They build their cases. And they have a trial for TV, and that jury goes, nah, he's not guilty. For sure, he's not guilty. This is insane. There's probably a conspiracy. Then in the 90s, he helps the King family sue the guy who ran that restaurant at the bottom of the boarding house, Lloyd from space. I don't know what the fuck his name was. Lloyd Jowers.
Lloyd Jowers. I'd have trouble remembering that too.
They sue Lloyd Jowers in a civil court and win. And they went, we're only suing him for $100. We're glad he came forward. And that's the least amount of money we can take. It's not about the money. We just want a court to have all the evidence and to find the right thing. Because that guy finally came forward and was like, yeah, no, it was all bullshit. Because like 10 years before the 90s, in the 80s, late 70s or something like that, he came forward and said, yeah, James Earl Jones is a patsy, but it's this delivery driver for the vegetables I get from this crazy mob company. Just some random dude. That's who did it. And it took him 10 years to go, okay, really? It was the Memphis Police Department. And then you trace the Raul story. This lawyer finds the Raul guy because the lady in Houston knew him before he did that, knew that he knew Jack Ruby. It goes everywhere, dude. It's so deep.
Anyone that's drinking right now to our podcast, take a drink every time Clayton accidentally says James Earl Jones. He's done it 3 times now.
Is it James Earl Ray?
Right. It's James Earl Ray.
Wasn't there at some point that he did confess?
James Earl Ray?
Yeah. I thought I read something saying he did confess at some point.
It was when he put his guilty plea in, but so kind of not really. They say he confessed, but I have it written down. His quote when he said he was guilty. Give me a second, I gotta find it. Here it is. He interrupted. Okay, so when you put in a guilty plea, it's just in front of a judge, and they go, cool, do sentencing or whatever. He interrupted his court proceedings to say, I can't agree with Mr. Clark or Mr. Hoover. I'm not trying to change anything. I don't believe their theories on the conspiracy. This is while he's pleading guilty. He's like, what you're saying isn't true, but I'm pleading guilty. Right now, I don't know if it was at the time, it probably was, but there's something called an Alford plea, which is a guilty plea, but you're only acknowledging that the state has enough evidence to put you in jail. And you want the results of a guilty plea. I don't know if that existed.
Weird
I should
way
probably Google that.
to do that. What was it called?
An Alfred plea, like Batman's butler plea.
It's just.
Does it say when it was instituted? That would be interesting. Anyway, I know I missed a lot. I don't think I did very much justice in explaining how real Raul turned out to be.
But
this
that's
had a lot
good
more
side that's a big side that I've never heard.
I went from thinking this had as much validity as JFK, as far as like, obviously the government did it. We don't know who did it. This one is pretty all the way flushed out. We know who did it. We know how much the government was involved. It's like
Everybody was involved, dude. The NSA was involved, the CIA, the FBI.
exactly.
So, the Alfred plea thing, if I'm reading this right, the Alfred plea, like you said, you're pleading guilty, but you're not actually acknowledging that you did the crime.
Mhm.
The ultimatum is if you get convicted guilty while you're still trying to plead innocent, they're going to put you to death. So we're either going to kill you or you just say that you did it.
Right.
Dude, that seems unconstitutional.
When did that start, though?
1963 was the
70.
case. They have the actual first,
Oh,
whatever you call it,
1963.
precedents.
Why does it say North Carolina versus Alfred 1970?
Where's that? Maybe it was
The
the
very
1963
top,
above
murder
it.
right here.
Yeah. No, the first fucking sentence.
Maybe that was the
right there, right
It's-
at origin.
It's right.
The
there.
Alfred guilty
Oh
plea.
my god, right at origin.
So
No,
the Alfred
maybe
plea-
the murder was in 1963, but then it took 7 years to go to court.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. The world will never know.
That's
It's
not
not
what
the
this
same
episode's
time.
about.
It's definitely not popular.
Yeah.
That's the point.
That seems wildly unconstitutional, though. That is sketchy, so bad.
We can talk all day about unconstitutional, sketchy shit the government's done.
Yeah. Let me look over these these points to see if I missed anything. I didn't really point out to the extent. Okay, so at one point there's an author named William Bradford Huey who offers James Earl Ray in 1976 a pardon from the governor of Tennessee, a new identity, and $220,000 if he will write
What?
a book with him where he admits guilt.
Damn.
So,
Oh,
like,
man.
post
Got a
all this
book.
happening and James Earl Ray being alive, the government, he escaped again in 77. That one was set up, and he wasn't supposed to come back. Like, he was supposed to escape, and they were supposed to kill him. So he couldn't keep saying it was a conspiracy. There's mob witnesses who were saying, I got orders from my mob boss I had fake documents so I could transfer James Earl Ray with a state administrator to another prison. We were never going to take him to the other prison, but we had real looking fake documents. We were going to pull him out of jail. We were going to kill him and see how long it took for anyone to figure out he was gone, because this prison would think he was gone, and this prison never had any information that he was ever supposed to come in. And the reason that mob guy didn't do it is because he was like, I thought it was so significant that if I signed up to do it, they would kill me right after I did it. I don't think they wanted anyone to know what happened. I think they wanted to Jimmy Hoffa this hoe, and they were just going to wipe the fucking floor, and I was on the floor, so I didn't do it.
Take it out, man. You can't leave those people out there knowing what they know.
For real.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gone over time, but that book is thorough. So it's like his third book on Martin Luther King, and it goes from, like, you don't have to read the first two if you read this one.
That's pretty good then.
Are they the same editions? He's just updating it as he goes, or?
No, they're 3 different books. This is the newest one that came out in 2016. I think it's about all the information he's going to ever have on it. Just because, I mean, he knows there's fucking army teams on the roof. Crazy shit.
Crazy shit. Do we had anything else?
I think that's it, man. I think that's the episode.
I don't
He
know.
was taken out, and it's unfortunate, and it sucks because he could have been a world leader that could have really helped us.
Yeah, like
And
I said,
they didn't want that, and you know, in order to get what we want, there are sacrifices that are made, and it sucks, but at least we're not segregated anymore.
Yeah, but to get what the government wants, they just take out whoever they want. But to your point that he could have been a world leader, he was like literally in the very early stages of running for president against RFK, who was asking for him to endorse him.
I didn't know he was actually had like. I mean, I'm not saying he
I don't think he would have endorsed him.
Political aspirations.
He never wanted to do politics, but the Vietnam War spurred him so much that there were talks of him and some dude named Spock running for president.
There should be some kind of
Spock.
I don't know how you would do it, but people that don't want the job should be president.
Earbud, dude. Shit.
Benjamin Spock.
Oh, Benji.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So what's next week look like? We looking at
Y'all want to
MK Ultra?
do? Yeah, we can do MK Ultra.
I know we put that off to do this week because it was appropriate.
No, I think it's worth. I think we're gonna do it this episode, but then obviously we changed it. But MLK deserves its own episode. It's bonkers.
Yeah.
Have you seen Stranger Things?
Yeah.
That's basically MK Ultra, right?
Oh,
Dude, there's so many movies that are basically MK Ultra.
Yeah, fucking Bucky Barnes from the Avengers, dog. He is the Manchurian Candidate. But yeah, I mean, like we already meant to do, like I said earlier, MLK in this season, but I didn't realize it would align with a holiday almost. So, all right, we'll do MK Ultra next week. Let's hit some plugs and get out of here. I gotta pee again.
Anybody want to volunteer to go first? Am I always
and I
first?
have a 6:30 a.m. flight to fly into Houston and drive to Alabama. I mean, fly into Atlanta and drive to Alabama.
What time? You have to be at the airport at 5?
Yeah, that's about as late as I'm willing to get there.
That's pretty crazy, man. Please don't be an ad. God. I will go first, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I am on here every Tuesday night at 7. I do the show with my 3 best buds. 3 of my best buds. 3 of some of my best buds. Let's do that. This music's too loud.
Well, it's only 2 of us also.
3 best buds doing a show together, which I am included in. But we do this show every Tuesday night. Have this ready to go, I thought, but we have merch. It's wildly overpriced, but it is what it is, I guess.
So is the economy, and they do it for us. So
I think there's stuff built into the pricing that the company has forced upon us, right?
Probably like 90% of every price there is built in.
Yep. Kudos to Shrooms for creating the logo and for doing all of the artwork for the show. Appreciate that very much. Outside of the show, I occasionally pop up on Twitch under BOC Molasses playing video games. I say I do music, but it's been a minute since I've done music on there. I always forget something. Am I forgetting something?
No?
We're good? Who's next?
Join the Discord.
Join the Discord. I'll do that right now.
Yeah, now that it's open. Apparently it was locked, but Discord is open. All right. I'm Drake. That's my band playing in the background. Able Delilah. Check that out. AbleDelilah.com. You can get some merch and check out future shows and music videos and all that good jazz. New music this year. I occasionally pop up on here on Twitch as well. You can find me, Inked Beats. Follow the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get that going as well. Inked Beats on YouTube. And that's it for me. I pop up on here reading conspiracies all the time, but you, Clayton.
Yeah. We'll stay dialed into the Discord too. We'll pop up. I mean, we're looking at shit all week long, so if y'all throw some shit, especially current event stuff, that would be helpful.
Yeah, any current events.
We pivot the topic a lot, but if y'all find some MLK or MK Ultra stuff, let us know. But I'm BOC Wasabi on everything, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. But I do a show every Sunday on YouTube at The Rolling Third, all one word, no spaces. And we've pivoted into a movie trivia show, game show. It's a lot more fun. We had a lot of fun last week with Draco, his lady, and Adam's lady. And
it was a lot of fun.
I think this next coming week, Jeremy said he would be on it.
Be the computer guy, yeah. I was thinking like maybe I could be like the game show host, kind of like I'm navigating you and Adam.
No, doggy, no more computer guy, no more.
Gotcha.
No more hosts.
Gotcha.
We're all involved. You're gonna have to know some shit. But that's it for me. Obviously, this show. Love you all.
Peace.
Oh, check us all out on YouTube and Rumble too. This show specifically.
Yeah, I meant to say that on mine, but the show gets immediately uploaded YouTube. I say immediately, but tomorrow, probably sometime around the afternoon, you'll get hit with a YouTube video of it. So it'll be cut, no more intro, no long outro, no bathroom break or anything, but clean, unedited.
Yeah, follow, like, comment, subscribe. It really helps us in the algorithm. Other than that, we'll stop pandering. Love you.
Peace, guys. Bye.